Hey, how you doing? It is I, the Terrific Lady, otherwise known as Brandy, and welcome to Retro Horror School and happy Friday. It is Friday once again, as David Lynch would say. Hope you guys have some really awesome weekend plans tonight. I'm going to go see the new Deadpool and Wolverine movie. So I hope it's good. Fingers crossed. I'm sure that it will be. But enough of that, on to today's video. Today's video is another franchise ranking. I've done a franchise ranking of Nightmare on Elm Street. I've done a franchise ranking of the Omen franchise. And now, since we are counting down the days to Halloween, what better franchise to do than the Halloween franchise? All in all, the Halloween franchise is a total of 13 different movies. It is called the Choose Your Own Adventure of horror movie franchises because there have been so many sequels and attempted reboots and restarts and timelines. So there is something for everybody. If you want to watch all the movies in order, starting with the 1978 Halloween and going through to Halloween Ends, that is perfectly valid. Or you can choose your timeline, choose your flavor, depending on what story you like. We've got the sequel timeline, the Carpenter continuity, also known as the Cult of Thorn timeline, which consists of Halloween 1978, then Halloween 2, which came out in 1981, then Halloween 4, Halloween 5, and Halloween 6. Then we've got the anthology timeline, which, considering how you want to watch it, could consist of Halloween 1978 and then Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, or you could just watch Season of the Witch all by itself. Either one of those would be considered the anthology timeline. Then we've got the what I like to call the H2O timeline, which is the Laurie Strode continuity reset. So we got Halloween 1978, Halloween 2, then Halloween H2O, which came out in 1998, and then Halloween Resurrection, which came out in 2002. Then we've got the Rob Zombie reboot timeline, which consists of just two movies, Halloween and Halloween 2. That came out in 2007 and 2009, respectively. And then we've got the what I call the H40 timeline, which is the 40 years later timeline. The Laurie Strode continuity reset take 2, which starts with Halloween 1978 and then goes to Halloween 2018. You could end there if you wanted, considering the nature of Halloween 2018, or it could continue to Halloween Kills, which came out in 2021, and the last in this franchise timeline, Halloween Ends, which came out in 2022. So there's a bit about the timelines. It can get confusing, especially if you are a first-time watcher and you want to either focus on a specific timeline or you don't know where to start. Those are the timelines all laid out for you. And now I'm going to get into ranking every movie in this franchise. I'll be talking about things like plot, characters, storyline, and just my general overall feelings about it. Now, these are my personal rankings. Again, they're not the end all be all of rankings in the Halloween franchise. I would love to know your rankings and how you would rank these movies in the comments. I always get very curious about what y'all think and how we are the same and how we differ. Let's just always have those respectful discussions going. So without further ado, here are the rankings. Number 13 and the last for me on this list is Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, which came out in 2009. It has been a while since I watched it. I remember thinking it was okay back then. When I watched it for this ranking, I had such a visceral reaction. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm not really getting down with this. The story felt disjointed and all over the place, and then also boring at the same time. Maybe I found it boring because of the fact that the story to me felt very disjointed. And I'm not even really talking about the inclusion of the white horse. I get why the white horse is there, but the whole dead mother and ghost of his younger self kind of harkens back to when Jason Voorhees hears his mother's voice chiding him and encouraging him, for lack of a better words. I got that felt really strange. Like, why now would all of a sudden Michael Myers care about family when he's done nothing but try to kill them and kill Laurie and offer? I mean, I don't know. There's nods and homages to the other movies in the franchise, like a nod to the 1981 Halloween 2 because it was set in a hospital for a little bit. There's also a nod to Laurie having nightmares, which also happened in Halloween H2O. And if you like gore, there is lots of gore in this movie for you. You will not be disappointed. But there were lots of other things that overshadowed, was like what I thought was the good things. Another one being Brad Dourif was excellent in this movie. He's excellent in pretty much anything, but in my opinion, even he could not save this movie. Tonally, I felt it was disjointed, which helped to make it boring. I also felt they did not handle the character of Loomis well. They made him horrible, a horrible person, which to me is the antithesis of everything that the Loomis character in previous movies was meant to be. Unless you want to make the argument that Loomis in the previous movies, like, yeah, he wanted to kill Michael, but was obsessed with it. Well, this Loomis had a different sort of obsession, an obsession with being famous, I guess, and that's what kind of made him an asshole. I did not like the way that Loomis was handled in Halloween 2. All those factors combined makes Halloween 2 my least favorite of all the Halloween movies. Number 12 in my rankings is Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. So Michael Myers is pissed and coming back again. Let me just get this straight up and out of the way. I thought the mask was absolutely terrible. Much like I'll talk about in Halloween 4, the mask was also terrible. I have to wonder where they keep getting these Michael Myers masks. Do they go to party stores and just buy them off the shelf? I don't know. Daniel Harris, who played Jamie, and Donald Pleasence, who played Loomis, were the two best parts of this movie. What I understand is why they had to make Jamie silent throughout half of this movie. Why did they have to kill Rachel off that early and replace her with Tina? I have no earthly clue. And unless she was adopted or something, Rachel was not her stepsister. Rachel was her foster sister. And did they even mention that the mom died? I don't know. They just ignore the fact that Jamie's infected by Michael's evil? I mean, where'd that all go? Jamie also kept fainting and kept having telepathic connection things all over the time, and that got old. And again, much like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, this movie also felt disjointed and over the top. From Donald Pleasence especially, even though he was one of the best parts, was trying to, I guess, overcompensate for all of what I felt did not work in this movie. The guy who played Michael Myers, Donald Shanks, he was perfectly fine. He was solid. The mask was horrible, but not his fault. He's not the one that chose the mask. So there were some bright spots in this movie. Overall, I felt it was too disjointed, too over the top, too boring, and too many what I felt was grr and annoying things for this to be any higher than 12. Number 11 is Halloween 2, which came out in 1981 and was a first time watch for me. I watched more of the movies in this franchise than I initially realized. There weren't that many first time watches for me. Halloween 2 is a first time watch. John Carpenter and Deborah Hill wrote and produced this movie. You have Dean Cundey as being the director of photography, which explains why, even though this film wasn't directed by John, it was directed by Rick Rosenthal. That's why you see a similar look from Halloween 1978 to this one. I don't understand why they had the Mr. Sandman song. To me, that did not fit at all. I have to wonder who this character Jimmy was. Like, Laurie was suddenly like crushing on him and dating him whenever like she had a crush on Ben Tramer in the first one. So I guess she forgot all about Ben in favor of Jimmy. In this movie, poor Ben dies in a fire because they thought he was Michael. They thought he was Michael Myers. He was dressed up in the same type of mask and had the same kind of coveralls on. Poor Ben. Maybe that's why she didn't crush on him, because she knew he was gonna die. So basically, story-wise, this is meant to take place directly after Halloween. Laurie is taken to the hospital. Michael follows and finds her there and is hacking, stabbing, and killing along the way. There were some really cool kills. The bathtub kill, or the bathtub sauna kill, immediately comes to mind. That was pretty gruesome. There was the mob mentality idea, people wanting to go after Michael Myers and wanting, I guess, to burn him. People really like burning Michael in this franchise. That is something that I notice a lot. It is something that I will comment on. They really do like to burn him. I don't know why. I like the hospital setting because it's an isolated, contained setting. Laurie's hurt. She doesn't have a lot of places to go to try and get away from Michael. So I like the isolated, contained setting. The idea of Michael finally being inhuman, more than a human, fully took root here, along with the idea of Michael and Laurie being brother and sister, from what I could gather. And maybe the whole cult thing. Maybe. Dick Warlock was not my favorite Michael. He felt too stiff, too robotic. There was really nothing to him. I mean, nothing against the guy personally. He just was not my favorite iteration of Michael Myers. The ending, I thought too, was a little silly. Michael being blinded in the eyes and shot. I personally thought the ending was silly. And overall, to me, even though the cinematography looked the same as 1978 Halloween, overall it was missing that suspense, that edge of your seat terror, that atmosphere, and that tone. It was missing all that. To me, it's a generic kind of meh movie. One that would be easily forgettable because of the setting and because of a few of the cool kills. And because of the potential I felt it had, a setting like that would have so much potential for a good story. It is why this movie is sitting at number 11. Number 10 is the last of the newer movies in this franchise, Halloween Ends, which came out in 2022. This movie tried to do something new with introducing the character of Corey, and the idea of Corey being almost an outcast and then infected by the evil of Michael Myers and wanting to carry on his legacy and be his, I guess, intern protege, whatever you want to call it. He wants to learn to be like Michael Myers, I guess. My main issue is that the movie, if you're going to introduce a whole new character and not focus a whole lot on Michael, you should make it a standalone. You should not be introducing a whole new character and focus on them for the entirety of the movie only to kill them off. Yeah, don't be introducing a new character that you're going to put almost 100% of your focus on in the last movie of a trilogy. That was a big issue to me. And I didn't care for the whole Allison Corey romance either. I thought like what they just looked at each other and they were in love. It was almost like they were forced together, like that meme, like, now kiss. that's what I felt that was. It felt so awkward. I mean, the idea had definite potential, and I didn't find it boring like the other movies that I talked about before this. I thought him being squished by a refrigerator, Michael Myers, and Allison going, ah, run towards him for their crazy yell. I thought that was pretty funny. And then they effectively removed any chance for Michael to come back by putting him basically in a meat grinder, unless they want to start a whole new timeline. I don't know, but yeah, it's a movie that was decent enough, and it had its potential. It was cohesive from beginning to end, and it wasn't disjointed. I feel it's fair for it to be in the spot where it is on my list. Number 9 is Halloween Kills, which came out in 2021. And before I watched all these movies for a franchise ranking, Halloween Kills used to be dead last on my list. After rewatching it, I feel that this movie has some merit to it. In fact, one of my favorite sequences in this movie is when they were recreating that scene with young Officer Hawkins, the aftermath of everything that had happened, like it was taking place in 1978. I thought the way that they shot it was reminiscent of some of these films. I thought that was really cool. I loved seeing the aftermath and Michael Myers getting arrested. And the guy that they got to portray Dr. Loomis, I honestly thought it was CGI at first, or they stuck like a CJ pasted like a CGI face, or they pasted a CGI face over some guy. But I remember reading that they didn't, and I thought that was cool. Not understanding why they made the choice to show Michael's eyes, I thought that was strange. I thought Michael Myers as a character was very grounded in 1978 Halloween and even the 2018 Halloween. But in this movie, they're coming back around to the idea you could take it two ways, that either Michael Myers is immortal and that's why he's more than a man, he's immortal, he's supernatural. Or you could take it like how Lori was talking about, in a way, Michael Myers is the personification of evil or a metaphor of evil. So the more that he kills, she talks something about how the more he kills, the more he ascends. So you could take it how, like, the more he kills, the more his evil is infecting others and infecting the town. And I think that's a good way to look at it. That's how I look at it. I really don't like the whole Michael Myers is supernatural and all powerful kind of thing. And the couple that lived in the old Myers house, Big John and Little John, I enjoyed that little scenario. I wouldn't want to live in a house where someone was murdered in. Not even if I could get it for cheap. No. There were also a lot of what I like to call dumb decisions made in this movie for sake of furthering the plot. I got Marion shooting out the window and then locking the door in the car that she was in with a few other people. So look, if you shot out the window, locking the door ain't gonna do any good. And then she said, pointed the gun at Michael and said, Michael, this is for Dr. Loomis. It's like, well, Michael didn't really do anything to Dr. Loomis other than escape and steal the car. I mean, he didn't really do anything because this timeline, the age 40 timeline, ignores all the other movies. So he escaped Smith Grove and stole a car. That's really all he did to Dr. Loomis. So that line made absolutely no sense. Also, don't play a drinking game and try and take a shot every time someone says evil dies tonight, because you'll end up with alcohol poisoning. That was said way too many times, and it got a little annoying. And again, going back to dumb decisions, whenever the mob was in the hospital and trying to find Michael Myers, they were going after a guy that clearly did not look like Michael Myers in the slightest, because they showed pictures on TV of the two escaped inmates, and one, they showed Michael Myers, and then they showed this other guy. This other guy looked nothing like Michael Myers. I don't know what they were trying to do. The whole idea of the mob going after this guy, I guess they were trying to comment on the nature of mob mentality and how the mob in turn became the monster. But then they cut that commentary short and they were just like, and they did nothing else with it, which disappointed me. Also, they could have cut out the scene of the mob beating up Michael Myers, because I thought that was kind of silly too. Because you do all that to him and he's still alive. Come on. Come on. I definitely don't hate it. And it's not at the very bottom of my list. There were a few things I like about it and a few things I wish they could have done differently. But yeah, Halloween Kills is definitely not as bad as I initially thought. Number 8 is Rob Zombie's Halloween from 2007. I saw this movie pretty much when it first came out, because I like Rob Zombie's films. They have a gritty feel to them. It's very Texas Chainsaw Massacre inspired, and it definitely shows with how it's shot, like the grittiness of it, the goriness of it, and the idea of just this screwed up family. Even though Rob Zombie is very big on showing hillbilly stuff, he always has. I mean, that's just typical Rob Zombie. And this movie was like a who's who of horror people, or people that have been in horror movies. So I saw Danny Trejo, Dee Wallace played Laurie's mother. Then Bill Moseley was one of the security guards at the asylum. Then Clint Howard and Ken Foree were also in there. Then Danielle Harris and Brad Dourif, who played the Hacketts. And then you had Sid Haig, who played the caretaker of the graveyard. So yeah, this movie is a bit of a who's who of horror people. So if you're a horror fan, you'll definitely be like, ooh, look. I sure was. I like the second half of the movie more than the first half. Whenever in the second half you had big old Tyler Mane as Michael Myers breaking out of the asylum and then going off towards Haddonfield and then killing everybody. I like that. That felt a lot like the 78 Halloween that I like. Michael Myers just getting straight down to business. The first half tried to set this precedence of why. Like, why is Michael Myers the way he is? Rob Zombie tries to throw that at you. So, why was he the way he was? Well, he tortured and killed animals and he had this horrible family life. I don't really want to know the why behind Michael Myers. To me, it's enough that he's just purely and simply evil. I don't need to know the reason why he wears masks or why he likes to wear his mask, because he feels that he's ugly and wants to hide his face. I don't need to know why he doesn't talk, because the janitor told him that he had to go inside his head to keep from going insane. I don't need to know too much about how he broke out of the asylum. I like it just when it's like, oh, he's broken out. I don't really want to know the why behind it, or yeah, to me that didn't feel important. The breaking out of the asylum felt like it dragged on for a little bit too long. And again, didn't care too much for this version of Loomis. Too sleazy, too opportunistic. I did not like the way that he was handled, but I like the second half better than I do the first half. The second half felt more like a slasher to me. The first half was not subtle in the way it was trying to show why Michael Myers was evil. That I did not really care for. But you have a good second half of the movie in this one. So, there you go. Number 7 is Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. And this is where the cult of Thorn really became evident, where Jamie is grown up and has this baby, and this baby, they're going to do something with it. Michael Myers is part of this cult of Thorn, and he's sent to kill Jamie and get the baby, I guess. And then Paul Rudd finds the baby. Yes, Paul Rudd is in this. This was his first movie. Paul Rudd finds the baby and wants to protect it, I guess. There were some pretty cool kills. The tree kill where the guy was up in the tree, I think it was the radio DJ, and the girl was dancing under it saying, "This is warm. The rain is warm. It's red and it's warm." It's like, oh my God. So there were some good kills. Definitely kept me a lot more interested than 5. I mean, even though I felt like they shoved the Cult of Thorn in there to try and find an explanation as to why Michael Myers is this supernatural, all-powerful being, the movie kept me interested. You got George P. Wilbur as Michael Myers. He was also Michael Myers in Halloween 4. I thought that he did decent, and he was a solid Michael Myers. And alas, this is Donald Pleasance's last movie. He was a good Samuel Loomis. Rest in peace. But yes, Halloween 6 was a decent enough movie that kept me entertained, kept me interested, even though I thought that they just shoved the Cult of Thorn plot in there out of nowhere. So, what can you do? Number 6 is Halloween H2O, and this was the only other first-time watch for me. I had never seen this film before I did this franchise ranking. So Laurie knows somehow that she's Michael's sister, and she's gotten a divorce, and in this timeline, the H2O timeline, she has a son who's played by Josh Hartnett. This is also his first movie, and he has a very bad haircut. I call it the weed whacker haircut. So she moves out to California, changes her name, and is a headmistress of a school. Somehow Michael has like a homing beacon to where he always knows where to find Laurie, even though she's all the way in California and he was in Illinois. But he finds his way to the school that she's the headmistress at and does what he does best, kill people, and wants to kill her too. And it's very much about Laurie facing the demon that is Michael and getting rid of him once and for all. I like the part in that movie where Laurie is teaching about Frankenstein, and there's discussion going on about how Victor finally had to face his monster, the Frankenstein monster, when he had nothing left to lose. And in a way, that's a metaphor for Laurie finally having to face her monster and defeating it, which is Michael. Chris Durand is Michael Myers in this one, and I thought he wasn't really all that threatening or imposing until the second half of the movie, whenever he is going after Laurie. That's when I felt the action in that sense started to pick up. He was a fine Michael Myers, but what I don't get is that this mask completely showed his eyes. And I don't know if it was done accidentally or on purpose. So I don't know if they were trying to humanize him, because all the other masks, except for one other, you were not able to see his eyes, because not seeing someone's eyes, and that's how you are able to read and get their emotion, is the creepiest thing. But for some reason they showed his eyes. I don't get like what they were trying to do there. Again, isolation is my thing. That's what I love about horror, and the fact that they set it in the isolation of a school, and that it's Laurie finally facing down her monster and chopping its head off. Ugh. You go, Laurie. Since it came out in 1998, it was around the era of Scream, so it's Scream-esque, which I don't mind. A very solid, enjoyable movie that I would definitely watch again. This is interesting. Number 5 is Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. This movie did not do well on its release at all. Over the years, it's slowly and steadily gained a cult following, and it has been looked at again, from a critical standpoint, has been given positive reappraisals now. On this sequel timeline, Danielle Harris is Laurie's daughter. And then Michael finds out that he has a niece and none of that bloodline can be alive, I guess. So he has to go and kill her. Like, no, that kind of goes against his code. He doesn't really hurt kids, but the idea of him going after and wanting to hurt a child, it keeps you engaged and on the edge of your seat because obviously you don't want to see a kid hurt. No. I thought Danielle Harris did a great job. Her performance was engaging and you felt for her and you were rooting for her until she was infected by Michael's evil at the end. Then I'm not rooting for you. No, you got George P. Wilbur as Michael, but dear God, that mask has to be the worst in this entire franchise. Why couldn't they just take the mask from Halloween 1978 and just keep using it? Make molds of it or something. Because this mask was terrible. And I have heard the excuse that, oh, he grabbed this mask at a party store, so that is why it looks bad. But Michael Myers got his mask from a store in Halloween 1978, and it looked boss. So I don't really see that as an excuse. And I really liked the character of Rachel. I thought that she was a strong character who did her utter best to try and protect her foster sister, Jamie. And she kicked ass. She was a strong presence that ended up saving Jamie and getting out of it alive. And you can't ask for more than that in a slasher movie to be one of the final ones standing. I mean, that's where I would want to be. But overall, the performances, the storyline endeared me to this movie. I liked it when I first watched it, and I still like it. It's one that I will probably have to eventually own for myself. But yes, the fourth movie in the franchise is the number 5 movie on my list. Number 4 on this list is the 2018 Halloween. It is the only one of the Halloween movies that I saw in theaters. I was stoked about it when it first came out because of the idea of a Laurie versus Michael showdown. Laurie waits for years to go after him and finally kill him. Michael has been waiting all this time to finally get out and go after Laurie. So a Laurie versus Michael showdown. That got me about as excited as a Freddy versus Jason showdown. Grounded in reality. The opening, the almost about 10-minute opening was very strong. It set the stage of the movie. Those podcasters, interviewers going in to try and get the whys behind Michael doing what he does and showing them the mask and then going into that badass theme. I love it. When he gets out and finally gets his mask back, he starts killing indiscriminately, which makes sense with who he is. I mean, in 1978 Halloween, he killed indiscriminately and for no reason. Just saying. There is a theme I notice of obsession throughout, and it goes one step further than just Laurie being obsessed with Michael and Michael being obsessed with Laurie. You had the podcasters who were obsessed with being the ones to get something new and different about the story of Michael Myers. You had Michael's new doctor, Dr. Sartain, who was obsessed with knowing what killing feels like. Weirdo. So much obsession going on in this movie. I really liked it. And the idea of how obsession can lead to less than desirable consequences. The whole Allison boyfriend storyline thing I could have done without. I think you could have cut Allison out altogether and have been fine and not have lost anything plot wise, or at the very least, just cut out the boyfriend. I don't Whenever they try and write her with a boyfriend, it does not work for me. And again, they really like burning him, even though I thought that was a cool ending scene. This should have been the only movie to come after Halloween 1978, in my opinion, to end it all. This felt more like a ending movie. This felt more like a Halloween Ends than even Halloween Ends did, but it was solid. It's one that I will go back to just a lot. I will still go back to it. I enjoy it. So that is why it's sitting where it is on my list. Trick or treat, motherfucker. Halloween Resurrection is number 3 on my list. And that may shock a lot of you who expected Halloween Resurrection to be near the bottom, because it seems to be a movie that a lot of people do not like. And they have their valid reasons. There are some people who are very upset at the way Laurie was killed off within the first 10 minutes of the movie. They thought that made what she did in Halloween H2O meaningless. And I could definitely understand that. I do know that as a condition for her being in this movie, she wanted to die within the first 10 minutes or she would not be in it at all. I do know that much. But it's definitely fair if people do not like the way that she went out. So Michael kills Laurie, and then as he doesn't know what to do. So he heads back to his house in Haddonfield, where you have a group of 6 college-age students who are with Busta Rhymes and Tyra Banks. It's not their characters' names, that own this reality TV company. And these 6 college students are going to be in the Michael Myers house and investigating it and trying to find out what's what with Michael Myers. And it is being streamed live to the internet. It is very much ahead of its time because of the idea of streaming and of reality TV and using the internet for that. Ahead of its time in that way. It was a new and different setting. The idea of reality TV. There were a few instances in the movie where a lot of the things were fake. And then Busta was dressing up as Michael Myers to try and scare them. And they called him out on it. And he said a line that I thought totally resonated around the idea of reality TV culture. America don't like reality, first of all. They think it's boring. That sums up the whole idea of reality TV, which I loved. I like the concept. I like that they tried something different. And I liked how the audience helped the main girl, the lead character, helped her escape. So then you have the idea of audience interaction, which again, another reality TV component that was ahead of its time. Busta Rhymes wasn't in the movie as much as I thought he was. Like, I remember him being in the movie a lot more than he was, but he wasn't. And he had the parts of defeating Michael Myers with Kung Fu, which I thought was pretty freaking funny. I laughed at that. And again, they like to burn Michael. That's the common method of death in this entire franchise for Michael Myers. They like burning him. Brad Loree played Michael Myers in this movie, and you could definitely tell that he studied a lot of Nick Castle's movements because he moved a lot like Nick Castle in 1978 Halloween. And I thought that he was a really good Michael Myers. He's one of my favorite iterations besides Nick Castle. And I forgot to mention James. I don't know if I mentioned James Shoot Courtney from the newer Halloween movies, but if I haven't, James Shoot Courtney is also an excellent Michael Myers. So lots of good Michael Myers in this franchise. Yes, I like this movie, and I am not going to apologize for it at all. There were 2 other movies that I liked more than this, so this is why it sits solidly at number 3. Number 2 is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, the standalone movie in this franchise. that you could watch immediately after Halloween 1978 as part of the anthology timeline. Now, I recently saw this about, I believe, 4 or 5 years ago. So it's been a little while, but not like too long. So all I had heard up to that point before I watched the movie is that either people really liked it or they really hate it. There was no in between. It seems like a lot more people are coming around to it now. So whenever I watched it, I thought it was cool that they did something different. The Irish wizard warlock wanting to control and take over the world and kill all the children, like through the use of his Halloween mask. I thought that was really a wicked storyline. I wish the anthology idea had taken off. Halloween 4 was meant to be a ghost story, but because of Halloween 3 not doing well, they never got to do that. I really, really wish that Season of the Witch was Halloween 2. Then I think the anthology idea could have taken off. But what could have been? It was an enjoyable watch from beginning to end. I didn't really care too much for the romance between Tom Atkins and that girl character. I mean, the girl's father dies, and I know if someone in my family died, the last thing on my mind would be getting with Tom Atkins, even though I love Tom Atkins. I think he's really cool, but that would be the last thing on my mind. If it was more that he was helping her investigate what was going on and you left the whole romance thing out of it, I would have been fine with that. And the ambiguous ending is typical John Carpenter. You don't really know what's going to happen or what happened. You're left to decide for yourself. Did the commercial get turned off in time or did it not? And all the children die. Who knows? But I love this movie. It is one of my favorites, but there's one more that I like better than that. And I bet you can't guess what it is. Well, you can. Let's go ahead. Number 1 is the original Halloween from 1978. John Carpenter. You knew that this will be number 1. I am the biggest John Carpenter fangirl on the planet, and I love this movie. When I first saw it as a teenager, I didn't initially love it. I thought it was boring, but when I revisited it, it is a masterful slasher. Some consider it the slasher that kicked off the slasher craze of the 80s. Now, I feel there were definitely movies that came before it, like The Town That Dreads Sundown, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Black Christmas, that helped to establish a lot of the tropes that Halloween would then use and perfect for the slasher craze of the 80s to take off. It's definitely fair to, if you want to put Halloween as the benchmark for the beginning of the slasher craze. That is a perfectly valid point. The tone was one of suspense and suspicion, and could Michael be looking around every corner? The atmosphere was very creepy, and it kept you on the edge of your seat. You have Laurie Strode, a perfect final girl who kicked ass. Term final girl, I don't think was even coined around that time, but she kicked ass. And then you had Michael Myers, who became an icon after this movie. And the story is very simple. Michael Myers escapes from the asylum, goes back to Haddonfield, and kills babysitters. The storyline is very simple. John Carpenter, as a director, likes to take simple storylines and then just present them in a very awesome atmospheric way. And I don't know how much more I can say about Halloween other than the fact that I love it. It will always be my number 1. Always. Whew, there you have it. I have ranked all 13 movies in this franchise. Again, I would love to know your rankings. So let me know in the comments. Or you could tell me what your favorite movie in the franchise is, your least favorite movie in the franchise is, or what you think about my rankings. So whatever your thoughts about the Halloween franchise are, let me know in the comments. And sadly, class is dismissed, everybody, for now. But I will see you next time. Bye.